it going?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Barbara Peters, and I'm sitting here with Patrick Millikin of our staff, and we thought we'd do just a very short book talk about several titles that we're both enthusiastic about. So Patrick,
Yeah.
pick one.
Okay. All right. This one right here, City of Margins by William Boyle. This is his fourth published book, and just a really terrific read. He doesn't really do a series so much, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Pelicanos, Richard Price. His characters kind of all inhabit the same world. Really great book, kind of a breakout book for him.
He got an excellent review in the New York Times Book Review last Sunday, and you're thinking about setting up a virtual event with him, right?
Yeah. I've been in touch with him, and I think we're going to do something soon.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch over now to The Woman in the Mirror, which is a English Gothic, a little bit like Rebecca. It takes place in Cornwall. There's a modern story and two different backstories, and a curse that kicks the whole thing off several centuries ago, and then we kind of work our way forward. I really like the writing. It's very atmospheric. I think anybody who enjoys a Gothic, which really requires a house, if you think about Rebecca, to make it work well. So we have all those ingredients here. I had just a little twitch at the end, and for those of you who read it, you can decide for yourself whether you think the author gave it one extra or not.
The next one I'm going to pick is this new book by Hilary Davidson called Don't Look Down. I always liked what Hilary was doing before, but I think she's really bumped way ahead with this new series, which is, I think she's calling it the Shadows of New York series.
This is book 2, right?
This is book 2, yeah. Just a really great, just when you think you've read it all with the New York kind of cop series, it's just got a really fresh new voice. Really liked it a lot.
I did too. I thought it was excellent. And hilariously, I was thinking Hillary, I think, was born in Toronto.
Yeah.
So for some strange reason, I thought, there's no way we can get signed books from Hillary because we can't ship to Canada. And then she reminded me she lived in New York for all the time we've known her. But you're right, it's an excellent book. I have a book here that I especially want to recommend to Clive Cussler fans. If you want adventure writing and you've never read James Rollins, then I'm telling you, The Last Odyssey is the book for you. It's a voyage around the Mediterranean, kind of in a modern shadow of the Odyssey. Odysseus' voyage to get home. There's a lot of new geo-knowledge. Efforts have been made to tie real landscapes to things that Homer talks about, but it also segues up to Greenland, and it has a lot to do with the Arab Golden Age, with science, astrolabes in particular, and compasses. But if you're a Cussler fan and you recognize how much we're all going to miss Clive, who sadly died this winter, and not from COVID, but probably old age at 88. The Last Odyssey is a book I highly recommend to you. Our copies also come with this nifty special insert, which you probably can't see very well on the camera, but for years we have been selling James Rollins books with extra collectibles, and I think that this is a particularly good one. Plus Jim has drawn this very cool little compass thing on the autograph page.
Very cool.
It is.
Yeah, okay, my next one is this book, The Burn by Kathleen Kent. She wrote, I think, maybe 4 really interesting historical novels.
Did she?
Yeah, I'm not mistaken. And then this is the second book in this new series set in Dallas, Texas. And it's a female lesbian cop from Brooklyn that comes from a long police family, and she's kind of thrown into Dallas. And it's culture shock to say the least, but what a really brave, kind of ballsy female protagonist. She does a wonderful job, great voice, and that's what I read for, and I think that's what you read for. It's just a voice. It's like all the situations. There's nothing really new under the sun when it comes to plot, but when it comes to voice, some people have it and some don't. I think Kathleen really has it.
Her first book was called The Dime, if
The
I
Dime,
remember.
yeah, terrific.
And that was one of your hard-boiled crime club picks.
It was indeed, yeah.
So I was wonderful. And you know, you're right about voice. I don't normally actually try it again. I don't normally nitpick a little plot thing like I did with The Woman in the Mirror, but very occasionally there'll be something, that I don't love in the plot, but that doesn't mean overall I don't like the book.
I mean, obviously plot's very important,
Sure.
If there's a problem with it, you notice it. But, when you look, at least when I look back and kind of remember my favorite books, I don't necessarily remember exactly what happened, but I remember the character and the writing. And one that I wanted to, speaking of writing, this guy, Michael Ferris Smith, he's been on my radar for a while, and I think this is a terrific book. If you like, Daniel Woodrell is one that obviously gets compared to him, and Woodrell actually has a blurb. I just noticed that on this book.
He does. I thought about David Joy for that.
David Joy, Brian
Maybe
Panowich.
Wiley Cash, yeah.
Panowich, who has a really good new book coming out too, by the way. I forgot about that. But sort of that rural, kind of noir, but I'm bored of the term noir. It gets overused. I just say really good kind of literary fiction. So he's one of my favorites.
I liked it a lot. I read it too. And I think he's not as well known as he might be. I'm going to go all the way back to 1998 with one of my all-time favorite books called These Is My Words, written by Nancy Turner, an Arizona author. And this is set in the Arizona territories in the late 19th century, inspired by her own family memoir. I think Sarah Prine is one of those voices that you absolutely love. It's a love story, it's a frontier story, it's a coming-of-age story, it's just all kinds of wonderful things. We are much more than a bookstore devoted to crime fiction. It is a specialty that we have, but the truth is we read very widely.
Absolutely.
We have science fiction, we have romance, lots of nonfiction, lots of historical fiction, and certainly a lot of Western fiction.
Yeah.
So I love this book, and Nancy has a sequel called Light. I think it's called Light Changes Everything. She was just here to autograph it a couple weeks ago, which is a descendant of Sarah Prine called Mary. And I really recommend both of these books if you're looking for something fun to read and warm and family-oriented and entertaining during the situation we're in.
Yeah, speaking of Western history, there have been a couple of really, really excellent kind of narrative nonfiction history books, and this is one of them, Killers of the Flower Moon. What can we say about it? It's about, at the beginning of the last century, the Osage Indian tribe, who occupied this very small little space, they found that they were the richest per capita people in the world, and it was kind of an episode of poetic justice, because the government thought they were putting them from their ancestral homeland onto this crappy, worthless piece of land, but it turned out to be over this vast oil reserve, and the Osage were shrewd enough to get the mineral rights. Well, what happened then, unfortunately, was that people started killing them, to get those oil rights. And Gran researched this and discovered that these murders that took place with these Osage Indians were much more widespread than anybody knew. It's kind of a classic, sadly, American tale. But another book kind of on the same line that I thought was really great, some of you I'm sure know it, is the Gwynn book about Quanah Parker, The Empire of the Summer Moon, about the Comanches. That's a wonderful, wonderful book. And another one for, speaking of kind of diversity of tastes, what we like to read, I just got my claws on this new biography of Robert Stone by Madison Smart Bell. And Robert Stone wrote the book Dog Soldiers, real classic, and I just can't wait to dig into that. So
that sounds really exciting. I fell in love with this series start by Jason Pinner, who, interestingly enough, is a publisher. He's a publisher at Polis Books. But he has taken another woman from the East and put her down in a city near Chicago. It's in Illinois, not as big as Chicago. Rachel Marin, her name is, a single mother. She's a vigilante. She's had an event that shattered her life, and now she hopes to save other people. And then the mayor in this new town that she winds up in, this small Illinois city, it winds up dead. The local detectives call it suicide, but she sees it as a murder, and off she goes. I love the voice. I really like the character. Not dissimilar from, in many ways, from the woman in the Kathleen Kemp book you just mentioned, in
Right.
the Dime and so forth. So I find it interesting, to see New Yorkers moving people out of New York,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they're not actually leaving New York in many respects,
Right.
but going to a new place. If you're looking for a rollicking historical adventure, I cannot recommend Deanna Rayburn enough. This is the 5th book in her wonderful series about a lepidopterist, which is a wonderful term. Veronica Speedwell. Lepidoptery, or butterfly catching, was a profession that respectable young women in Victorian times could use for to produce income. It wasn't considered trade as like using your hands, so she was able to keep her status. Anyway, they are just huge fun. For anybody who liked the Amelia Peabody series by Elizabeth Peters or books like that, I can't recommend Deanna's books warmly enough. And then finally, Harlan Coben. Now here's a book for the moment, The Boy from the Woods. This is by a guy who voluntarily self isolates. Right. He doesn't really want to come out of the woods, but circumstances force him to do it. And sure enough, returning to civilization is not a wonderful experience for him. He winds up with a murder to solve and so forth. Harlan is wonderful on this kind of suspense story, and many of you may think that he's mostly in suburbs in New Jersey or other places, or if you watch the TV, his TV things like The Stranger in London. But actually, what I like about this book in part is that it is suburban New Jersey, Westville, New Jersey, but the woods in the forest, not the forest preserve, I'm trying to remember, it's the something like the Restless Mountain, Ramapopo Mountains, whatever it is. There's a real wilderness right up against the suburbs, and so the boundary between them is fairly fluid, and as a result, there's a threat from the forest as well as from the suburb in play in this book.
Cool.
So what are you looking forward to for April? What have you got coming up? Just one book.
One book, the Don Winslow, the new book, Broken, I think is the name of it. It's a collection of 5 or 6 novellas, short pieces, and boy, are they good. He is, recently Don's been writing these big, kind of sprawling, epic, tales, and these are sharp, concise, just everything you'd look for in a Winslow story, and quite a diversity of pieces too. I was really surprised at what he's done with this book. I can't recommend it highly enough.
I liked it too, and I just today made an arrangement for us to have an exclusive extra piece by Don available only in our copies.
It's news to me. I didn't even know that yet.
You can't keep up because
I'm
moving so fast. I mean, the truth is, and it's really been interesting, that we are busier trying to undo and redo events or things we were going to be selling in the end of March and April and May than we were actually just doing them. It's been exhausting, but it's been stimulating. It's been interesting to look at new technologies and new way of doing things. Anyway, the Winslow, I haven't even had time to communicate with you.
Yeah, that's great.
But I'm excited about it. I am looking forward to one of my favorite authors' long-term series. I've always been devoted to the Regency because I grew up on Georgette Hare and Jane Austen. I really love C.S. Harris's Sebastian St. Cyr series, which takes place during the war with Napoleon and then thereafter. It's almost like a soap opera in some senses, big family drama that moves on through it, but the plots are amazing. And in this one, the 15th book, and of course I'm going blank on the title, but you can look it up, and we'll have signed copies, The East India Company, which is really capitalism at its worst by the 19th century. The East India Company has a great deal to do with the really awful murders that unfold. So as if you're interested in historical fiction, you not only get the Regency in this one, but you also get the British East India Company. I think the actual title of it is A Company of Merchants Doing Business in the East Indies, or some complicated thing. But it's one of the earliest examples of a shareholding company. And like many corporations like that, it did some really bad things along the way. So this has been great, Patrick.
Yeah, it's
I've
fun.
enjoyed talking.
Yeah.
Let's do another one in a few days and talk about some more books.